Happy Philadelphia Eagles game day. The Eagles have a tough game against the Los Angeles Rams today at 1 o'clock here on Sunday. Last year, the Eagles took care of business against the Rams twice that they played. Saquon Barkley, the Eagles running back, rushed for over 200 yards in both of those games, had like 4 total touchdowns, I believe. Just great performances out of him and the team. They won that divisional round playoff game at Lincoln Financial Field in the snow, obviously, as well. I was actually at that game. It was awesome. It was electric. So go Birds, but we are not here to talk about the Eagles. We are here to talk about the Philadelphia Phillies, who unfortunately did not come away with that victory last night in Arizona on Saturday night. They lost a tough 1.1 run game, 4-3 to the Arizona Diamondbacks. The series is now tied 1-1 heading into today's series finale of this 3-game road series, actually their last road series of the regular season here in 2025. Ranger Suarez is on the mound today for the Phillies, trying to win another series for his team. That game starts at 4:10 local time here in and around the Philadelphia area on the East Coast. Welcome into Phillies Daily, everybody. I'm your host, Mike Hennelly. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Phillies content right here on Phillies Daily. Now, Aaron Nola, the Phillies veteran, he's been around for a long time, one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball for most of his career. Not so much this year here in 2025, but he was on the mound for that game last night against the Diamondbacks. Not a bad performance by Aaron Nola, not a great performance by him, just okay. He kept the team in the ballgame, and really, for the year he's having, that's all you can ask for out of him. Unfortunately, the Phillies offense could not take advantage of some opportunities. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Aaron Nola allowed the Phillies scored 2 runs in the first inning to take a 2-0 lead there. You thought he got that run support early on. They might be on their way to another good offensive game. Just didn't happen for them. Aaron Nola then allowed 2 RBI singles. First one in the first inning to make it a 2-1 ball game, and then another one in the third inning to make it a 2-2 tie between the Phillies and the Diamondbacks. Alec Boehm, the Phillies' third baseman, hit a solo home run in the fourth inning to give the Phillies a 3-2 lead. But then Aaron Nola ran into some trouble a little bit later on in the sixth inning. He allowed first a double and then a consecutive double, so back-to-back doubles. 1 run scored, tied the ball game at 3-3. Rob Thompson, the Phillies manager, decided to go get Aaron Nola, remove him from the ballgame, and put Tanner Banks in for relief, who's been having an incredible season for the Phillies out of the bullpen all year long, and really going back to when they acquired him at last year's trade deadline in 2024 from the Chicago White Sox. Unfortunately, Tanner Banks did allow that runner on second base that Nola allowed there off of those back-to-back doubles to score on an RBI single. It was the go-ahead RBI single. The Diamondbacks took a 4-3 lead there in the sixth inning, and that run was obviously charged to Aaron Nola because he allowed that runner to get on to second base. So the Phillies obviously ended up losing that game 4-3. Aaron Nola charged with all 4 runs. His final line was 5 1/3 innings pitched, 7 hits, 2 walks, 4 earned runs, 4 strikeouts, and he picked up the loss. So again, not a horrible performance by Aaron Nola, not great by any means. Kept the team in the ballgame, just the offense couldn't capitalize. He didn't allow a home run, which has been his kryptonite, his Achilles heel, really this year and for a lot of the years past. So I guess that's something to take away. But Aaron Nola, the trust meter there for the playoffs, obviously he might not be in that for the first series where they typically go to a 3-man rotation. That would most likely be Christopher Sanchez, Ranger Suarez, and probably Jesus Luzardo at this point. It could be Aaron Nola, but who knows? But then obviously when they expand to the 4-man rotation, likely going to be Aaron Nola, unless they decide Walker Buehler is a better option there for them. Who knows? That remains to be seen. Obviously, Aaron Nola not having a great year here for the Phillies, and Walker Buehler did not have a great year for the Red Sox before he was released. However, he has looked pretty good for the Phillies, both in the starting rotation and in the bullpen we saw in Game 1 of this 3-game road series against the Diamondbacks when he came in for relief of Taijuan Walker and pitched over 3 innings for them. So, Aaron Nola, that trust meter is kind of wary. Who knows what's going to happen here in the playoffs? You would have hoped he could have had a good a dominant outing last night and one of his last starts coming up, but that just did not happen, and now there's a lot more questions than answers around Aaron Nola heading into October and the Phillies playoff run. Now, speaking of the Phillies offense last night, as I said, they had opportunities, just not their night against the Diamondbacks. Happens, long season. We've seen it happen all year for the Phillies, that they have these little games that they can't really produce runs, they can't get things going, they can't find a rhythm, and that's unfortunately what happened last night in that 4-3 loss to the Diamondbacks. Now, I said they did score those first 2 runs in the first inning. You thought it was going to be a good game for the Phillies, got that got to Zach Gallen, who's a pretty good pitcher for the Diamondbacks early, got those 2 runs for Aaron Nola, but just the offense overall not clicking. Alec Boehm had that solo home run in the 4th inning, but still, the Phillies offense had just 7 hits, and they were 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position. You're not going to win ball games like that, especially the Diamondbacks are a team, a playoff caliber team. They're not in a playoff spot. They're fighting for their playoff lives right now, so they want it a lot more. And it's just a tough matchup there in their home ballpark. So the Phillies just couldn't get things going, weren't clicking. They did run into some solid pitching, not great pitching, kind of just like Aaron Nola, Zach Gallen. He's been one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball for a little while now. Also, kind of like Aaron Nola, not his best year, but he pitched good enough for the Diamondbacks to win, and they did just that last night. He went 7 innings, allowed 4 hits to the Phillies offense, 2 walks, 3 earned runs, and he struck out 9 Phillies batters and picked up the win last night on Saturday. So just unfortunate day for the Phillies offense. They did have some opportunities, particularly late in the ballgame. They could have capitalized on a pretty shaky Diamondbacks bullpen. They had 1st and 3rd with 1 out in the 8th inning, obviously down 1 run, 4-3. Brandon Marsh, one of the Phillies' better hitters, one of the hotter hitters really for months now for the Phillies. He's been producing and getting things done, coming up in clutch moments. Unfortunately, Brandon Marsh did not come up in the clutch for the Phillies last night. 1st and 3rd, 1 out, 8th inning, down 1 run. Brandon Marsh struck out looking for the 2nd out of the inning. Still 1st and 3rd, tying run, still 90 feet away with 2 outs. But Alec Boehm was not able to deliver either. He flied out to the outfield to end that inning and keep it a 4-3 ball game heading into the bottom half of the 8th inning. And then the Phillies had one more chance in the 9th. They actually did get a runner on by a Bryson Stott single, but couldn't get anything else going there in the 9th. And they ultimately lost that ball game 4-3. Series tied 1-1 heading into today's series finale here against the Diamondbacks, trying to go for another series win, but they did have their chances last night. Couldn't come through with runners in scoring position. Couldn't come through with that 1st and 3rd tying run 90 feet away with less than 2 outs in the 8th inning. Unfortunate stuff for the Phillies. Unfortunately, you're not going to win every game, and they fell short to the Diamondbacks last night on Saturday. Now, does that lead to the Phillies kind of throwing in the white towel, maybe giving up their hopes of securing that number 1 seed in the National League? The Milwaukee Brewers have the top seed. They now have a 3-game lead for that top seed in the National League over the Phillies because the Brewers won last night on Saturday. The Phillies lost. So 3-game lead for the Brewers. I believe the Brewers also have the tiebreaker over the Phillies. If they were to tie at the end of the season, the Brewers would still get it. Phillies have just 7 games left, 3 games back. That pretty much means for how good both teams are, the Phillies would have to win out, and the Brewers would pretty much have to lose out these last few games for the Phillies to be able to jump the Brewers in the standings. Right now, the Phillies do have a pretty cushiony lead for 2nd place in the National League, which also means they have a 1st-round bye just like they had last year in the playoffs, which is could be good, could be bad. We saw it wasn't good for them last year. Baseball is a sport where you kind of have to be playing every day to stay in your rhythm. And unfortunately, the Phillies ran into a hot New York Mets team last year in the playoffs after having that 1st-round bye, and they lost in 4 games in the NLDS. Early exit for the Phillies. You don't want to see that happen again. They are playing a lot better baseball right now than they were at this point last year. So maybe hopefully that is a sign of better things to come for the Phillies in the playoffs. But right now, they have a pretty but a pretty significant and cushiony lead for the 2nd seed in the National League. Do you kind of just throw in that white towel, as I said? Unlikely that they jump the Brewers for the top seed to have complete home field advantage throughout the National League playoffs. They still will have home field advantage through the National League playoffs as long as they don't face the Brewers at any point, most likely in the NLCS. If they face any other team, they would have home field advantage with that number 2 seed. Obviously, they play a lot better baseball at Citizens Bank Park. It's one of the best, if not the best, baseball atmospheres in all of Major League Baseball, specifically in the playoffs. We've all seen it. We've all possibly even been there to experience it live. The players feed off of it. It's just great energy, and opposing teams have trouble playing there at Citizens Bank Park in Red October. Now, throwing in the white towel, possibly, all these players and the coaches, they wanted to chase the Brewers for that top seed, for that National League leading seed, stay in the standings to have complete home field advantage in the playoffs. But again, pretty unlikely. And at this point, do you give some of these starters a day off or 2 here with these last 7 games? Not rest them like you would in football, maybe if you had a big lead or something like that, just because that's more of a physical sport. And as I said, you kind of have to be playing every day in baseball to stay in your rhythm, to not kind of fall into a slump. So taking a day off here or there for a couple of players like Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, get him off his feet. Some of these infielders, some of the outfielders we've seen even in this series just to get these starters off their feet for 1 or 2 days to get a little bit of breathing time, a little bit of rest heading into the playoffs to trying to secure a World Series championship. Maybe we see that happen now, especially if they lose today. Then they're really pretty much, those dreams of the first seed are really out of the window heading back home for these last 6 games of the regular season. We'll see what happens, but in my opinion, that's what should happen. They have the second seed. They should just run with that and get into the playoffs healthy and ready to win a World Series championship. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Phillies Daily. I'm your host, Mike Kennelly. Make sure you guys like, comment, share, and subscribe for more Phillies content right here on Phillies Daily. Eagles-Rams, 1 o'clock. Big game. Phillies Diamondbacks series finale, trying to win another series. The Ranger Suarez on the mound at 4:10. So you can watch the Eagles and then right then watch the Phillies right after. So go Birds, and as always, go Phils.